Hey everybody, it's Greg again. It's another edition of Unbreakable the podcast, and it is Friday, January the 10th. And before we talk here, of course, the patron saint of this fine podcast, Bud himself. There it is. It's an old picture I found of him. Look at the teeth on him, huh? This is after the orthodontics went there, after the braces came in. What a gorgeous man, huh? Huh? Bud, we love you and miss you. All right. Well, you know what? We were going to talk about Eagles today. We're going to talk Eagles tomorrow morning. I have a lot to talk about with the Eagles. We're going to talk about the Eagles Packers game coming up on Sunday at 4:30. And then I'm going to give you my thoughts also on the other playoff football games this weekend before they start. They start tomorrow. And we're going to talk all about that tomorrow morning, Saturday morning. Why? Because today it's baseball. And all the Philly fans out there hopefully are tuning in and listening or watching the show. Because last night I got to meet the one and only Ruban Amaro Jr., the ex-general manager of the Phillies, now current broadcaster. And he came to our hot stove meeting here in Phoenixville. And it was really nice. He talked for about an hour and a half, really. And really, the only reason it stopped was because people wanted to go home and watch the Penn State game. But he was very interesting. So I wanted to fill you in on a few things, sort of hot stovish that is going on that Ruben talked about. Well, first of all, there was a good crowd. It was about 45 people attended the meeting last night, the event. And that's a good sized crowd. That's about the biggest hot stove crowd that we've had. We had a big crowd back in November when Bobby Wan was my old friend, was the guest. And but last night beat him. And so Ruben came in with Jim Salisbury, the old writer there. Actually, they do a podcast together now. Ruben and Jim do a podcast. And I forget the name of it, but you could look it up. But so they came down together because Jim was a guest of ours a couple of years ago, and he was really good. In fact, he came the night that the trade deadline was late in July, and the summer trade deadline was just up. So he was checking his phone, and there at the meeting, he was giving us a lot of updates about what was going on as far as the transactions were concerned, all through Major League Baseball. So that was pretty interesting. So he knew his way down, so he brought Ruben in. So uh, he talked a lot about a lot of different things, but there are a few subjects that he really hit. I, being the big mouth that I am, which you know, after almost 500 episodes of this show, I got to ask the first question. And well, first of all, Ruben's a really nice guy. And we were all at tables there. And he went around before the event while people were still eating. You know, we usually have like hoagies and pretzels and beer and stuff, you know, typical stuff like that. And he went around and said hi to everybody, shook hands, took pictures, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, the event. And introduced them. He started talking. And basically, you know, he said, everybody knows me. I've been around the Philadelphia sports scene, the Phillies for 40 years, 40, 50 years, you know. He went to Stanford. He was a pretty good baseball player at Stanford. He played against Mark McGuire. Randy Johnson was out there at the time and at USC. And, you know, he thought he was going to be overmatched. He wasn't. He made professional ranks. He played for the Indians, of course, he played for the Phillies. He talked about his time with the Cleveland Indians. What a great lineup did that. Manny Ramirez, Jim Thome, all those guys out there. Yeah. And even with that, the Indians did not win the World Series. So go figure, right? So once we start talking about the Phillies, I have the first question. And I saw him on the MLB that during the trade, the winter meetings. And he does a good job on there. And he proposed a trade for the Phillies at the time. He thought the Phillies should trade Alec Bohm and Nick Castellanos to the Houston Astros for Kyle Tucker, who eventually was traded to the Chicago Cubs, and Paul Pressey, who's their good relief pitcher. And I thought it was a good deal because Tucker is an up-and-coming player. And Pressey, we could always use bullpen out, right? Could never have enough pitching, never enough bullpen out. And I know the team is down on Bohm, and they kind of want to get rid of Castellanos because of his salary. He's very inconsistent. Plus, get rid of his salary, it kind of opens up things. So right now, the Phillies are sort of boxed in with contracts, and so I asked him that question because I wanted to know why he proposed that trade, why it didn't go down. I really was looking forward to that kind of topic, but when I asked him the question, he really focused on Alec Bohm. In fact, Alec Bohm came up a number of times during anything. Very interesting. First of all, he answered me, he said, well, I proposed that trade because they wanted me to throw something in the fantasy thing. What kind of trade would I do? He said, but I want it to be known that I would not trade Alec Bohm. I would not trade him. Even though Ruben's a broadcaster now, I think he still has some influence in the organization. Just the way that he was talking and stuff. I mean, granted, he's not the GM anymore. There's Sam Fold, Dave Dabrowski. I think that organization respects Ruben, even though they fired him at one time. I think they respect his knowledge, and I think they respect his opinion. I mean, he's all around. He talks to the manager every day. He's on the field talking to players. And I think he's got the ear of the hires. So his thing is he would not trade Alec Bohm. And he had a lot of good reasons. Number one, Alec Bohm is still young. He said what Alec Bohm needs to do is he needs to grow. He needs to mature. If anything, Ruben was very honest all evening. And he said, Alec Bohm needs to mature. He just sort of melted down at the end of last year. When he made one bad play, it sort of escalated. He let it bother him. And he took it with him all the way through the playoffs, So it's not that the Phillies are looking to get rid of Alec Bohm, but they're going to listen like they would at anybody. If somebody overwhelms you with a deal, you got to listen. It doesn't mean that you're going to trade it. But Alec Bohm needs to mature. But he said, look at it this way. Alec Bohm is still young. He's one of the few hitters in that lineup that doesn't strike out very much. He hits the other way. Why would you get rid of one of your better hitters when you're looking for hitting? Plus, he said, think of it this way. He just settled an arbitration. I think he's getting $7 million a year. He asked Salisbury. Salisbury said, yeah. Look at it this way. How many other hitters in baseball can you find that has driven in 100 RBIs, which Bohm did this year, and is making virtually peanuts? And the Phillies have control over it. I mean, you got a Juan Soto who hit 100 RBIs. He's making $50 million a year. 50 compared to 7. Duh. So there's a lot of good reasons to keep him. He's gotten better defensively. He just lets things bother him, and he can't be doing it. The older guys have tried to talk to him about, don't let it bother him. But it's easier said than done. But if you make a mistake in the field, if you strike out with the bases loaded, so what? Okay, you can't do anything. Just get him next. But apparently, Alco lets it bump. So definitely would not trade Alco. So Ruben didn't even talk about Tucker. And actually, all through the night, he didn't even mention Castellanos, which was kind of interesting. Nobody asked about it, about Nick. He didn't say anything. So anyway, somebody asked about Scott Kingery. What happened to Scott Kingery? Which is the popular question. I hear that almost every hot stove event. We have our special guest. What's wrong with Scott Kingery? What happened? Well, Ruben took a big side. He goes, this one hurts me a lot because he said, I drafted Scott Kingery. He couldn't remember whether it was late first round or early second. He thought Kingery was going to be a player. Of course, he would have drafted. What happened to Kingery, as we all kind of know, but he validated this, Kingery got obsessed with hitting home. He was working out. Salisbury told us when he was our guest before, somebody asked him about Kingery. When Kingery was in the Phillies organization, Scott Kingery is down dangerous. They asked Salisbury the same question. Salisbury at the time said he's been working out with Aaron Judge out in California. And he's gotten it into his head that he's a home run hitter. And just all this analytics, which Ruben doesn't like. He was listening maybe to the agent. He said, Scott, if you hit 25 to 30 home runs, you could make a lot more money. But that's not Scott Kingery. Scott Kingery should be a guy who hits line drives. He should be a gap hitter. He should be using his speed, which he has tons of speed. So he just got messed up in the head. And he hasn't been able to get out of it. Once, like Ruben said, once you get so locked into something, it's not that easy to come out of it. No matter how much the coaches have tried to work with Kingery, just got done. So it just got to the point where he was just, in the minors, doing okay in the minors, but not good enough to come up to the majors again. And they just decided to part ways with him. But it's a sad thing because he had, and he still has all the ability in the world, but he got into this thing, analytics, where launch angle, he hit home runs, and like Ruben had a really good explanation of what a home run is. He said a home run is actually a fly ball. You just hit it harder. That's it. And what he's trying to preach to these fellow hitters is that you got to hit the ball first. You can't hit a home run unless you hit the ball. And you have to make solid contact to hit a home. Again, a home run is nothing but a glorified fly ball that goes forward. So, these guys have it in mind. And, when you try to hit a home run, that's when you're not going to hit it. Because the mechanics are all screwed up. It's just a whole technical thing that makes it. But when you try to hit a home run, you're not going to hit them. As I think Mike Schmidt says a lot of times, a nice easy swing, you beat the ball, you hit the ball solidly, the ball will fly off your bat. If you're facing like a guy with high velocity, he's going to provide the power, right? You just have to hit the ball solidly, get it up in the air, and the ball's going to fly. So that was very interesting about Scott Kingery, but he's not our problem anymore. Ranger Suarez. Very, very interesting. What is the oldest person? There's a lot. I'm a guy. A lot of old people these days, you know. That's basically what it is. A bunch of old people sitting around drinking and talking baseball. But the oldest person there is 93 years old. It's a she, and she is a Phillies fan. And she's the one who asked about Ranger. And she said, "What? Why was Ranger so great last year, first part of the season?" And then he slackened off. And Ruby said, "Yeah, he was actually probably, think about it, the best pitcher in baseball first half of the season. He was in the running for the Cy Young Award, All-Star game. I mean, you name it. We saw how he pitched. He was great." People are talking about the London trip. Yeah. What happened to Ranger was two things. He had a back problem that he wasn't telling people about, which really affected him. You know, Ruben said Ranger he's a great athlete. He fields his position well. If he gave Ranger a chance to hit, he could hit, just like Zach Wheeler. He could hit. Aaron Nola could hit. With the DH, now there's no use for him anyway. You don't need him to hit. But Ranger is a really good athlete. Problem is, he hurt his back, and he wasn't telling anybody. And second of all, Ranger needs to get in better shape. Ranger wasn't taking care of his body, because when his back broke down, he wasn't taking care of himself. His arm was affected. His mechanics were affected. And that's the Ranger we saw in the second half of the year. He wasn't the same guy. So they're hoping to get him back because, this is a big year for him. This is his contract year. And they need to get him right. They're trying to tell Ranger, you can make a lot of money. So according to Ruben, he said a big part of it is Ranger has got to dedicate himself to the program, to getting himself physically fit and staying with a certain regimen. I mean, look at Steve Carlton back in the day. Look at Zach Wheeler there. Well, they're on a certain regimen to follow religiously. And Ruben was talking about what an honor it was to watch Carlton pitch. Because Amaro was back way back in those days, if you remember. And he said he remembers kneeling next to Carlton and kneeling that circle and talking in the dugout and just watching him pitch. He was just like a machine, and he was so dedicated to not only being on the field or on the mound, but between starts. He had the weight training with Gus Heffling. I don't remember Gus Heffling on the weight gut. That's what Ranger needs. He needs to get a program, trying to get him a program that he can take care of his body. Because they haven't given up hopes for Ranger, but it's a big year for him. Who else? This was very interesting. He talked about this new guy, Jesus Luzardo. He loves Luzardo because Ranger was talking to some scouts down in Venezuela, saying he noticed Luzardo guy. They got him from Miami. Young left-handed pitcher. He's had health problems. He hasn't been able to stay on the field, but now apparently he's okay. They're expecting big things from him because these scouts in Venezuela was telling Ruben, this guy is tremendous. He's got not only an electric arm, he's got the makeup of a stud pitcher. He doesn't let anything bother him. He is just, he's got it. He's got it, whatever it is, right? He's got to stay on the field. you know. But he said people were wondering, why are we getting all this starting pitching? Now we need offensive help. We need bullpen help. I said, to me, my philosophy has always been, you can never have pitching. And you brought up something really interesting. Not just Ranger getting red last year, and Painter, who we're going to talk about, Painter coming back from the Tommy John. He rolled his eyes with Tom. Yeah. But he said, you know what? The Phillies have been really lucky with Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nolan. They have been relatively healthy for many, many years. And you think about that, that's true. They take the ball and they are out there every single freaking time it's their turn to pitch. He said, you can't always count on them. Hopefully, Wheeler and Noah are going to have good seasons again this year and for years to come. But let's face it, they're both getting older. So, which means that they're more susceptible to breaking down. And so you can never have enough pitching, especially when you're a farm system. I thought more people would ask about the farm system. It did, especially when the farm system isn't really producing the pitchers on a consistent basis. So to get Luzardo was a big deal. So they expect great things from Luzardo this year. So we'll see. Talking about trades. There was a question about Trey Turner should be playing center field. I agree with him because he's brutal at defensive field. Brutal. And Ruben kind of acknowledged it. I was one surprised. Because it's true. As far as the center field thing is concerned, and we'll talk about that in a minute because he specifically talked about center field being a black hole in the Phillies lineup. He said, well, you know what? To move Turner out to center field, it's a really delicate situation because apparently when the Phillies signed Trey Turner as a free agent, he can't be sure about this, but he thinks maybe somebody told him that he would play shortstop. And that's it. Ruben seems to think that, Turner, once he sees that he's really hurting the team defensively at shortstop, maybe he himself will say to Rob Thompson, hey, then let's do what's best for the team. If you need to be in center field, I'm okay to go center field. Right now he's not. He seems to think he plays shortstop. Now the thing is, why? Because he feels it's the easiest way for him to get in the Hall of Fame. I'm just telling you like it is, because there aren't that many shortstops in the Hall of Fame. And they look at it this way: if Barry Larkin could be in the Hall of Fame, why not Trey Turner? Trey Turner has already won 2 batting titles. He's got to pick it up a little bit offensively still. But when push comes to shove and he's ready to retire, he feels that going in as a shortstop may be an easier way for him to go in than as an outfielder. He said it's very delicate. We can't. The way Ruben said was, nowadays, 10 years ago, maybe you could talk to the guy and convince him to go out to the outfield for good at a club. But the way baseball is nowadays, the way you put it, there are more Chiefs than Indians, than Brewers. And it's more or less the players telling you what to do, rather than the other way around. Somebody said, well, can't Bryce Harper talk to him? Yeah, they're friends, can't Bryce Harper? And I was surprised. Ruben goes, nope. And he said, why? And Ruben said, Harper's not a leader. Harper's not a leader of that clubhouse. Schwarber, that's very interesting, isn't it? Schwarber, it sounds like, is the real leader in clubhouse. A lot like Dutch was the leader of the 93 up. We talked about those 93 Phillies too. So I said, yeah, I mean, Schwarber might be talked to. Not Harper. So that's going to be very interesting, how that's going to play out. Speaking of Schwarber, someone asked about the leader spot. Is Schwarber still going to lead off this year? What is Ruben hearing? Ruben said he really does feel that eventually this season, Schwarber is going to be hitting probably fifth in the lineup. He actually went down a lot. He said for him, he wants Bryson Stott to hit first. Bryson Stott first, then you lefty, righty, lefty. Then you got Turner, then Harper, then Bode, then Schwarber, Castellanos, and then you could mix her match at the bottom there, JT and Marsh and whoever else you want. But he said the reason I feel that Schwarber may finally be getting out of leadoff spot is because he's making better contact. Rob Thompson was afraid to put him in the middle of the line because he was striking too much. You got rally, people are pitching around Bryce Harper. It's important. The guy who's hitting behind Bryce Harper, that's an important spot because if Harper is hot, as we have seen, especially in the playoffs, they're going to pitch around Bryce Harper. So that key spot, number 4 spot, number 5 spot after Harper that's key. So Bode is a key, and then Schwarber. And he said, you want a guy there like Bode who's not going to strike out, who's not going to kill the route. And he said, Schwarber kind of figured out a few things. I wasn't striking out as much. As we know, he was taking more walks, and he was hitting the ball. His average was right. He wasn't hitting 198 or whatever. He was putting the ball in play. You put the ball in play, good things can happen. You strike out, nothing could get. So they're getting to the point where they feel like, yes, they agree that it would help the lineup if Schwarber hit like 5. And as long as he keeps making contact with the ball, putting the ball in play, there's a chance they may drop him down. Because they really believe that Bryson Stott, who needs to get it together too, could be the ultimate leader for him. Because he takes a lot of pitches. He's a great 2-strike hitter, as we know. In fact, there for a while, he's leading the baseball in 2-stroke hits. Bryson Stott, he's an interesting guy too. Apparently, he hurt his elbow last year. And again, didn't really tell anybody until later in the year. That was affecting his swing. They were afraid he was getting a little too Scott Kingery-ish too, where he was swinging for the fence and swinging too hard. And I think we all saw it at times where he was chasing balls in the dirt, right? Flailed away, trying to hit home runs. They need to get Bryson Stott back to where he was because Ruben said he always thought Bryson Stott would be a real good player, but he has a chance to be a great player. In fact, a great hitter. To the point where he feels Bryson Stott, if he gets his head together, could be a batting champion hitter. He's that good. But he needs to hit line drives. He needs to be a gap hitter instead of trying to hit home runs. So we'll see what happens. He's healthy. Who else do you talk about here? The bottom line on Trey Turner looks like he's going to stay at shortstop, even though his defense is lacking. But don't be surprised if, as time goes on, if he still sucks at shortstop defensively, and he knows he's hurting the team. Don't be surprised if he volunteers to go to the outfield. Speaking of the outfield, yeah, let's jump to that. He talked about the outfield of the center field position. And he said, well, Johan Rojas was the most valuable player in the Dominican winter edition. Like, and he's like, yeah, he played really good ball game. So maybe he's figuring things out. He made a good point. He said, sometimes you got to hang with these guys. I mean, they're only kids, right? 20, 21-year-old, 22. Sometimes it takes time for kids to figure it out, and it's better to give a guy more time than less time. You don't want to give up on a kid who is really athletic, like Rojas is, and has a lot of potential just because he had one bad year. So he said, let's see if he can figure it out. We'll help him, but if he can figure it out, great. He said, realistically, Justin Crawford probably overtake him in time as far as being really good center fielder because they really like Justin Crawford. They really like Eden Miller too. These guys are going to be everyday players someday soon. So this is Rojas, this is another make or break for the guy. Not to say that the Phillies would give up on him, but it's an important year for us. And that's good news. I mean, if he's hitting the ball, right, he was playing well down in Dominican this offseason, then that's great. Hopefully he can carry it over to spring training into the season. Center field is still kind of a black hole until somebody steps up and proves that they can take the job every day. It's just the way it is. Rob Thompson, he loves Rob Thompson. He feels that Rob Thompson may be one of the best managers ever that the Phillies ever had. He communicates with the players. Rob Thompson gets a lot of grief for some of the in-game decisions that he makes. But, Ruben said, nobody's going to be perfect all the time. But the way he motivates these players in the clubhouse, talks to them, communicates them, he's great. He's great with people. And he has the perfect attitude where he doesn't get too high from a win or too low from a loss. And he knows a lot of times. Brandon Bush. That same lady I was telling about, 93 years, brought up Brandon Bush. She said, why doesn't he cut his hair? And Ruben just looked. And he said to her, well, did you want Jason Worth to cut his hair? And she said, yeah. Everybody. And he said, would you want Al Bowe to cut his hair? She said, no. Everybody knows it. So anyway, as far as Brandon Marsh is concerned, he said basically Brandon Marsh just needs to cut out the striking. He was striking out way too much, especially at the end of the street. So he said Brandon Marsh, he's not a star. Maybe he never will be a star, but he could be a good player. He'd be a serviceable player. He runs well. He's okay defensively. He could probably hit in 270. Again, he's not going to be, he is what he is, right? One thing he's not is a power hitter. And once I think you remember, he got off to a good start last year. After the first 5 games, I think he was leading the National League of home runs. I think he hit 4 home runs early on the first week. He's not a power. And what was happening with Brandon Marsh was he was swinging too hard. He was trying to hit the ball in the fence too much, and he was out of whack. Okay. So they're trying to teach him, they're trying to tell him, just hit the ball, just put the ball in play. So, as they are with a lot of these games, a couple more things. Can't read where. Okay. Somebody asked about what's the best trade you ever made and the best trade you did make and money. And speaking as a general manager, it said, well, we came this close to getting Manny Ramirez of the Red Sox at one time. And this was back in the day when they still had Chase Utley, Rollins, Ryan Howard, Doc Holliday, all those guys. Could you imagine adding Manny Ramirez to that group? But he said it just didn't work out. He eventually went to the Angels, and he said, but we were really, really close to getting Manny Ramirez, and he said that would be fun to have him on the Phillies. He said the best trade I never was Chase Utley was just coming up. And at the time, the Oakland A's had a left-handed pitcher named Barry Zito. Remember Barry Zito? I think he made the All-Star team at least one time. And the A's really liked him. They considered him a number one pitcher, number one starter. But you know how the A's, they develop a guy, and they want to, once he wants contract time, once he wants a lot of money, he dump him. That's what they used to do. So Ruben had an offer. Barry Zito, who was like a number one starter back then, for chasing straight. And again, this was before Chase Utley became Chase Utley. And for some reason, he turned it down. Ed Wade, I gave a lot of credit to Ed Wade. Said Ed Wade got a lot of flack from the media, from fans, but Ed Wade was really the guy who built the Phillies, built the Utley, Rollins, Howard, Hamels, that whole group. If it wasn't for Ed Wade, we wouldn't have had a championship back then. So, and he did the same thing with Houston. All these players with Houston the last 5 years ago, so they didn't cheat. All those guys, young guys, Ed Wade. So apparently Ed Wade was the total movement. I want to get rid of the kid. He's a pretty good ball player. They kept up. They didn't trade him from Zeno. The rest is history. I got to bring up too. Somebody asked about the chances of Jimmy Rollins and Chase Utley making Hall of Fame. Very interesting. Ruben thought about this for the longest time. I mean, he just stood there looking at the floor, saying a word. Shaking his head. He said, you know what? It's got to be really close. He said, I love Chase Utley, I love Jimmy Rollins. I'd like to see him get in, but will they get in? He didn't want to say yes or no. He's got his doubts. Salisbury, who was sitting on the side table, he actually asked you, he said, what do you think? Salisbury said, interesting answer. He said he thinks eventually Utley will get in about 6 years. That's the time for the game. Rollins, no. Although, if you're going to put Barry Larkin in the Hall of Fame, why not Jimmy Rollins? I mean, Jimmy Rollins was a vacuum cleaner short. He was reliable. He had that MVP season. He leads the Phillies a franchise in all-time. He was a hell of a player. But even though these guys still have doubts. So that's going to be very interesting. He talked about Ryan Howard. Somebody said that. Ryan Howard was the best offensive player in baseball for 5 years. Barney. You remember, what was it, 2006? When Howard hit 58 home runs, 2007. Had a hell of a year. And everybody thought, wow, this guy is a monster. And he did. I mean, he led the Phillies to that World Championship in 2008. One of the players that led it. And but that when he blew out his Achilles, that was just it. That was it. The last batter, the last pitch of the 2011 season. In that playoff game against St. Louis, when Howard hit that dribbler and he started running down first base and he blew out his Achilles. That was it. His career was done. Even though he came back from it, played with the Phillies a little bit, went to the Rockies. I think he played for the Braves too, man. He's never the same. Why? Because he couldn't use his lower body. No matter how much he rehabbed that Achilles, he was never the same. He couldn't get the power. A lot of power he would get from your mates, not just because they're strong upward and they have great eye coordination, great eyesight, their legs. He just didn't have that. He says really shit because Ryan Howard was a hell of a nice guy. And he did a lot for the Phillies. He really did. But after that, Achilles injury, never to see. So he's out there with the Hall of Fame. Nobody asked that from him. I don't know about that. Last thing here. Oh, Scott Boras. Somebody asked him, what was it like dealing with Scott Boras? And he just laughed. He said it was brutal. It was brutal. Scott Boras, he did his job, and he's still doing his job, to get as much money he can for his client, for the kid. And no matter what it takes. He said, he still sees him when he's out in LA, Dodger Stadium. He'll run into Boras in there. They say, hey, how you doing? We're still friendly. But he said, wow, what a tough negotiator, right? But you know what? Players love him because that's what he does. He gets as much money for them as he possibly can, right? So he just loves to do. A couple other things. He talked about Doc Holliday, how great of a pitcher he was. The best pitcher he ever faced, Greg Maddux. It's a little bit of a surprise. He said if Greg Maddux came up and down, he may not make it because all these scouts, GMs, are so focused on velocity. The pitchers are throwing 100 miles an hour, over 100 miles an hour. They're averaging like before. And Maddox was just about touching 90. Ruben said, toughest pitcher I ever faced, hands down, because he could change speeds like nobody else. He could put the ball where he wanted to put the ball every single time. His control was outstanding. And if you look back at the Greg Maddox's things and his stats, you'll see, yeah, he didn't give up very many walks every year. You know? So I was a little surprised at that. I thought he was going to say, a flamethrower in the 80s, 80s, early 90s, but no, but Greg Maddox was his pick. And then at the very end, and we'll end with this, somebody asked him, I thought it was a really good question. Going around the diamond, what would be his all-time Phillies lead? And that threw for a loop. He started laughing. He's like, wow, what a tough question. And he went around the infield. Now, Ryan Howard, first base. Chase Utley, second. Jimmy Rollins, short. No brainers. I mean, you think about that. 2008 team. 3 all-time Phillies right there. Mike Schmidt at third, first. Outfield was a little tougher. Outfield, he had to really take some time. He decided to put Ashburn in center because he was so great defensively and as a base runner and offensively. I mean, let's face it, when he couldn't hit good runs, but he could hit. He was batting champion a few times and he could hit. So Whitey in center field. He ended up saying, what did he say for one thing? He was thinking about Luzinski, but then he said, no, not Luzinski. He said Callison for right field. Left field, maybe, I forget the Del Ennis, that's right, Del Ennis. Interestingly enough, somebody said first base, Ryan Howard, he said, what about Dick Allen? He said, Dick Allen is a Hall of Famer, right? Ryan Howard has never been a Hall of Famer. But I would still take on an all-time Phillies team, we're talking about Phillies, not White Sox, not the raw baseball. An all-time Phillies team, he could take Howard and Dick Allen. Why? Because Dick Allen made a lot of his success away from the Phillies, the White Sox, and really American League. Whereas Ryan Howard, his success was with the Phillies. And somebody said Bryce Harper, right field. Yeah, not yet, not yet. He said eventually, yes, you're going to have to put Harper in there somewhere in the all-time Philly book. He said, not yet. He just hasn't done enough with the Phillies yet, and he hasn't been with the Phillies long enough. So that was very interesting and honest answer. I mean, to sum it up, he came off really, really honest. He talked about his broadcasting, how much he's still learning about broadcasting, but he's getting better, right? He said he's not perfect, but he's getting better. He admits being a homer. He said he believes Phillies red, but that's okay. He made some sort of a joke about the Mets, that he used to coach for the Mets. Yeah, but he's a Phillies lifer. After meeting him and hearing him speak, he is a true dyed-in-the-wool Phillies guy. Phillies love for him. I remember. He talked about his dad. His dad was a shortstop for the Phillies back in the day. Interestingly enough, somebody said to him, did your father, being a baseball player, want you to be a baseball player? He said, no. My dad wanted me to be a doctor. He said, that didn't work out. Actually, when Ruben was growing up, he was a hell of a soccer player. And every sport that he tried, he loved soccer the best. And he said he was pretty good at soccer. but said got into baseball kind of by accident. He never intended to be a baseball player, even though he hung around his father and hung around the Phillies clubhouse and stuff. But once he started playing baseball for his own, he liked it. And he started getting good at it. And that's when he went to Stanford and played collegiate baseball there. So, but no, actually, his father didn't discourage him from being a ball player, but didn't encourage him. He wanted him to be a. So there you go. So, after listening to him last night, people look at him differently now when I see him doing the Phillies podcast, And number one, I'm going to know that he's a great guy. And number two, I'm going to know that he's a Philadelphia Philly, deep down inside, and really knows. And no matter how much he tries to be objective, because that's his job, even if he's on MLB Network, we see him on there, he's always going to be a fan. So there you go. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast today, talking about Ruban Amaro Jr. and his thoughts on the Phillies. And before I go, they asked him about the prediction for this year. He still feels that the Phillies were one of the three best teams in baseball. No doubt about it. He claims, the Braves are good, but will they get Strider back? Will they get Acuna back this year? How are they going to be with major injuries? Nets are better with Soto, but he still feels that the Phillies are the team to be in NL East. Oh, I forgot, before I need Painter. That's right. Somebody asked about Andrew Painter. He thinks Painter will pitch for the Phillies sometime this year, probably not until July. They are of the feeling that they're not going to rush him. He is still too young to rush. He's only 21%. And they view Painter as special kind of pitcher, and they're not going to push him at all. So if he pitches at all, it probably is going to be until maybe July, so that you have a different stretch run. But he said, no. Everybody knows he has talked to him, from Dombrowski to Thompson to everybody, is saying he's coming along, but we are not going to push him. We're going to be very, very careful with this kid because he's a special pitcher. So there you go. But he is coming along, so it's good news. And as he said, the more pitching we have, the better off we will. Off season, he said before they got Luzardo, he was frankly disappointed in the off season. The roster, getting back to Kepler, but after you got Luzardo, that changed. Could they use some more offensive help? Yeah, could. But when he talked about that line, we had Castellanos, he was Bowden there, JT. Now he said about JT. Yeah. JT probably will catch it in the 10th position because they feel that he's going to be fresh. They feel they could get the most out of JT in 110 games than they can with him catching in 30 games. They're hoping that Marchand is going to step up. And Ruben said, Marchand has all the talent to be a relevant catcher in baseball. His problem, he's got the arm, he can catch. His problem, and he can hit. He's a switcher. His problem is he can't stay up, he can't stay on the field. He wasn't sure about the catching depth in the minors. He asked Salisbury, and Salisbury talked about this Tate, Tait kid, Big Warden Tate, who's down in the minors. He's an up and coming guy, but he's still far. Uh, so Ruben didn't really say much about Stubbs. I get the feeling Stubbs will be out. I think they want Marshawn to be the second catcher this year because Marshawn's going to be catching more games. I mean, if JT is only going to catch 110 games, it means 51 games for Marshawn to catch. I think that's what they want to do. In order to preserve JT. As far as after this year is concerned, because this is JT's last year, he didn't really say whether he feels they're going to renegotiate with JT to extend him about. I don't know. He didn't have an opinion. I guess it really depends on who they have coming up. Is by the end of this year, is Marshawn going to be able to take over full time? I don't know. We'll find out. I guess that's why they intend to play Marshawn at least 50 games this year to see what they get, or to see if they need to extend JT, or maybe they need to go out and get another catcher. Right? That'll all play out together. So I think that's it. That was a lot. So I hope you enjoyed the show. I will be back Saturday morning. We're going to talk about the Eagles. I have a lot of thoughts on this Eagle game. A lot of thoughts. I'm going to tell you how I think it's going to go down, especially after talking to a few people, especially after reading something too. I'll say that for tomorrow. And I want to talk about all the playoff games that are happening this weekend. What a weekend, huh? We had Penn State last night. Sorry, Penn State. That was a hell of a game, wasn't it? That was a bad interception at the end. And I didn't like the fact that Franklin kicked that field goal, but what was he on, 2 or 3 yard line? And it's not going to do it, Got to score touchdowns in the game then. But they'll be back next year. Look for them. Tonight we have Ohio State and Texas. Should be a good game, although I think Ohio State's going to kick it. I don't like Texas. Texas has a lot of speed on that team, but I don't like the quarterback that much. I really don't like the coach. Scarsazian. Don't care for him. I think Ohio State's going to take care of business too. And we'll see Ohio State and Notre Dame in the championship game. So that's what I feel. But what a weekend, huh? And then we got 2 playoff games, pro games tomorrow. Big games. 3 games on Sunday, including our Eagles at 4:30. And then we have Monday Night Football. You heard about because of the tragic wildfires out in California. They actually moved the Rams game to Glendale, to the Arizona Cardinals Stadium. So that's where they're going to be playing. From what I understand, there may be more Viking fans at that game. Because apparently Viking fans travel really well and Rams fans don't. And there's a lot going on around the LA area to keep the fans, rightfully so, to keep them back in LA. So from what I'm hearing, you might see more purple. You might see more Viking fans in the stands in Arizona for Monday night's game. And you got to think of it this way. Is that going to be a distraction for the Rams players? And for the Charger players tomorrow in Houston, being away from home, is that going to affect their psyche? And in the back of their mind, they're going to be thinking about their house back in LA and right? It's something you gotta think of. So interesting. We'll talk more about that too. Okay. All right, everybody. Take care. Thanks for watching. Peace and love. See you too.